There's a specific type of person that will absolutely destroy your mental health, drain your energy, and sabotage your success if you don't have a systematic framework for dealing with them. And the devastating reality is that you probably have at least 3 of these people in your life right now. Whether it's a manipulative coworker, a narcissistic family member, a passive-aggressive friend, or a gaslighting romantic partner. And the reason they have so much power over you isn't because they're particularly intelligent or capable. It's because you haven't been taught the specific psychological and philosophical tools for protecting yourself from their tactics. The ancient Stoics dealt with the most toxic people imaginable. Marcus Aurelius had to navigate a senate full of backstabbers and schemers who were literally plotting his assassination. Epictetus was enslaved by one of the cruelest masters in Rome. And Seneca had to advise the Emperor Nero, who was clinically insane, and eventually ordered Seneca's execution. Yet all 3 of these men maintained their peace of mind and their integrity while dealing with people who were actively trying to harm them. And they did it by developing a sophisticated understanding of human psychology, combined with unshakable inner boundaries that made them essentially immune to manipulation and emotional abuse. By the end of this video, you're going to have a complete framework based on Stoic philosophy for identifying toxic people, understanding their tactics, protecting your energy, maintaining your boundaries, and either neutralizing their impact on your life or removing them entirely without guilt or drama. And this isn't about being cold or heartless. This is about recognizing that your mental health and your mission are too important to sacrifice on the altar of other people's dysfunction. Now, before we dive into the specific Stoic strategies that are going to transform how you handle toxic people, I need to tell you about something that's going to make this entire process exponentially more effective. And that's the subconscious millionaire system that I've linked in the description. Because here's the truth that most people don't want to hear. The reason toxic people have so much power over you isn't just about their behavior. It's about the subconscious programming you're carrying that makes you vulnerable to their tactics, whether that's people-pleasing patterns from childhood, fear of confrontation, need for external validation, or guilt about setting boundaries. And until you address those subconscious vulnerabilities, you're going to keep attracting and tolerating toxic people no matter how many Stoic quotes you memorize. That system gives you the exact framework for identifying and reprogramming those subconscious patterns so that you naturally repel toxic people and attract healthy relationships instead. So check out that link after this video if you're serious about permanent change. But right now, let's talk about the first Stoic principle that completely changes how you see toxic people and why they behave the way they do. The first Stoic principle is understanding that toxic people are not evil masterminds who are consciously trying to destroy you. They're deeply wounded individuals operating from fear, insecurity, and survival programming that was installed during their own trauma. And Marcus Aurelius writes extensively in his meditations about how every person acts according to their nature and their conditioning. And getting angry at someone for being toxic is like getting angry at a snake for having venom, a scorpion for having a stinger. It's just what they are based on their programming. Now, this doesn't mean you tolerate their behavior or let them abuse you. It means you see them clearly without the emotional charge of taking their actions personally. Because once you understand that their toxic behavior has nothing to do with your worth and everything to do with their internal dysfunction, you stop giving them the power to affect your self-esteem or your peace of mind. The Stoics practiced what they called the view from above, where you zoom out and see the whole situation from a cosmic perspective. And from that vantage point, you can see that the person criticizing you or manipulating you or trying to control you is actually just acting out their own pain and insecurity. They're trapped in patterns they probably don't even consciously recognize. And while that doesn't excuse their behavior, it does free you from taking it personally. Epictetus teaches that no one can hurt you without your consent. And what he means is that someone can do things to your body or your reputation, but they cannot touch your inner character or your fundamental worth unless you believe their story about you. And this is where most people get trapped with toxic people, because they internalize the criticism, they believe the gaslighting, they accept the narrative that they're the problem, when in reality the toxic person is just projecting their own issues onto a convenient target. Here's the practical application. When you're dealing with someone toxic, you practice separating their behavior from your identity. You remind yourself that this person is operating from their conditioning, their insecurities, their traumas, and their actions are a reflection of their internal state, not a reflection of your worth. And you can observe their behavior with clinical detachment, the way a wildlife biologist observes a dangerous animal. You understand what they are, you respect the danger they represent, but you don't take their nature personally or try to change them into something they're not capable of being. The Stoics also understood something profound about toxic people that modern psychology has confirmed through research on personality disorders. Most toxic people will never change because they lack the self-awareness to recognize that they're the problem. They genuinely believe they're the victim in every situation, and they've spent decades building elaborate defense mechanisms to protect themselves from seeing their own dysfunction. So if you're waiting for them to have an epiphany and apologize and become a better person, you're going to waste years of your life waiting for something that will probably never happen. Marcus Aurelius accepted this reality, and instead of trying to fix toxic people, he focused entirely on controlling his own response to them. And that's the foundation of all Stoic wisdom about dealing with difficult people. You cannot control their behavior, but you have complete control over how you interpret it and respond to it. The second Stoic principle is establishing unshakable boundaries. And this is where most people completely fail with toxic people because they've been conditioned to believe that boundaries are mean or selfish, or that love means tolerating bad behavior. But the Stoics understood that boundaries aren't walls that keep people out, they're standards that determine who gets access to your time, your energy, and your inner world. And without clear boundaries, you're basically inviting toxic people to treat you however they want while you silently suffer and resent them. Seneca writes that we should choose our company carefully because we become like those we spend time with. And if you're constantly exposing yourself to toxic people without strong boundaries, the negativity, their drama, their dysfunction will inevitably seep into your consciousness and affect your mental state, your decision-making, and your entire quality of life. The Stoic approach to boundaries is not emotional or reactive. It's calm and systematic. You decide in advance what behaviors you will and won't tolerate, what level of access different people have to you, and what consequences will follow if someone violates your boundaries. And then you enforce those boundaries consistently without guilt, without explanation, without negotiation. Here's what this looks like in practice. If someone is constantly criticizing you, you don't argue with them or try to prove your worth. You simply say something like, "I'm not available for this type of conversation." And if they continue, you remove yourself from the interaction, you hang up the phone, you leave the room, you end a relationship if necessary. And you do it without drama or emotional reactivity because you're not trying to punish them or teach them a lesson. You're simply protecting your peace. If someone is manipulating you or trying to guilt trip you into doing things you don't want to do, you practice what the Stoics call the discipline of assent, where you pause before responding and consciously choose whether to accept their frame or reject it. And most of the time the answer is to reject it and restate your boundary. Something like, "I understand you're disappointed, but my decision stands." And then you change the subject or end the conversation because toxic people will keep pushing as long as you engage with their manipulation tactics. Marcus Aurelius had to deal with people constantly trying to use their connection to him for personal gain, trying to manipulate him through flattery or threats or emotional appeals. And his practice was to remain absolutely unmoved by any of it. He had clear principles about what he would and wouldn't do. And no amount of pressure or persuasion could move him from those principles because they weren't based on pleasing people. They were based on his values and his judgment of what was right. The key insight here is that boundaries are not something you discuss or debate with toxic people. They're something you state once clearly and then enforce through your actions, because toxic people don't respect verbal boundaries. They only respect behavioral boundaries, meaning they only stop pushing when they realize that pushing doesn't work. So if you keep explaining your boundaries, keep justifying them, keep giving second and third and fourth chances, you're actually teaching the toxic person that your boundaries are negotiable and they just need to push harder or try a different tactic to get around them. But if you enforce your boundaries immediately and consistently without discussion, they learn that boundary violations have real consequences and they either adjust their behavior or remove themselves from your life. And either outcome is a win for you. And this is exactly where the subconscious millionaire system becomes crucial. Because the reason most people struggle to set and enforce boundaries isn't because they don't know they should, it's because they have deep subconscious programming that equates boundaries with being mean, or that says other people's needs are more important than yours, or that creates overwhelming guilt whenever you disappoint someone. And those subconscious programs will sabotage your conscious intention to have boundaries every single time until you reprogram them. That system walks you through the exact process for identifying those subconscious boundary issues and installing new programming that makes boundary setting feel natural and guilt-free. So instead of constantly fighting your own conditioning, you're operating from a subconscious foundation that naturally protects your energy and attracts people who respect your boundaries. So make sure you check that out in the description if you want to make this transformation permanent. But let's keep going, because the next principle is where this gets really powerful. The third Stoa principle is practicing non-attachment to other people's opinions and emotional states. And this is probably the most liberating practice you can develop when dealing with toxic people, because most of their power comes from your emotional investment in what they think about you or how they feel about your choices. Epictetus teaches that you should never tie your happiness or self-worth to things outside your control, and other people's opinions are completely outside your control because they're filtered through that person's past experiences, their insecurities, their projections, their mood that day. So basing your worth on their approval is like trying to build a house on quicksand. It's inherently unstable and will eventually collapse. The toxic person knows this, and they weaponize it. They withhold approval to control you. They use guilt and shame to manipulate you. They threaten to withdraw love or connection if you don't comply with their demands. But all of these tactics only work if you're emotionally attached to their validation, if you've given them the power to determine how you feel about yourself. The Stoic solution is to practice what Marcus Aurelius calls indifference to externals, which doesn't mean you don't care about anything. It means you base your self-worth and happiness on internal factors that you control, like your character, your integrity, your effort, your values, rather than external factors like other people's reactions that you don't control. Here's how this transforms your interactions with toxic people. When someone tries to guilt you, you notice the guilt arising, you recognize it as an automatic emotional response that was probably installed in childhood, and you consciously choose not to act on it. You acknowledge that the person is trying to manipulate you, but their feelings are their responsibility, not yours. And you proceed with your decision based on your values, rather than their emotional pressure. When someone tries to shame you or make you feel inadequate, you practice the Stoic technique of examining whether their criticism contains any truth that could help you improve, and if it does, you thank them and integrate the feedback, and if it doesn't, you disregard it completely without any emotional reaction because their opinion has no bearing on your actual worth or capability. Seneca writes that the wise person is never moved by insults because insults are just words, and words only have power if you believe them. So if someone calls you incompetent, but you know you're competent based on your actual results, their opinion is just noise that you can ignore. But if part of you believes you might be incompetent, then their words will hook into that insecurity and cause emotional pain, which means the work is internal. It's about building such a solid foundation of self, knowledge, and self-acceptance that external opinions become irrelevant. The practical application is to regularly practice self-reflection, where you assess yourself honestly against your own standards, you acknowledge your strengths and your areas for growth, and you build your self-worth on that honest self-assessment rather than on other people's feedback. And when you do this consistently, toxic people lose their primary weapon because they can't affect you with their judgments or their emotional manipulation. The Stoics also practiced what's now called emotional regulation, where you learn to observe your emotions without being controlled by them. So when a toxic person triggers anger or hurt or fear in you, instead of reacting automatically, you pause and you notice the emotion, you name it, you feel where it lives in your body, and you make a conscious choice about whether expressing that emotion serves your interests in this situation. And usually it doesn't. Usually the most powerful response is calm detachment, where you simply refuse to engage with the toxic person's provocations. Marcus Aurelius had people insulting him constantly, questioning his decisions, spreading rumors about him. and his practice was to remain completely unmoved, not because he didn't hear the criticism, but because he trained himself to not derive his worth from external opinions, and that made him essentially invulnerable to the standard manipulation tactics that worked on everyone else. The fourth Stoa principle is mastering the difference between reacting and responding, and this is where you develop the tactical advantage over toxic people, because they're trying to provoke reactions from you. They want you to get defensive, emotional, angry, confused, because when you're in a reactive state, you're easy to manipulate and control, but when you train yourself to respond instead of react, you maintain complete power in the interaction. The difference is this: a reaction is automatic, emotional, unconscious. It happens immediately without thought, but a response is conscious, strategic, chosen after deliberation. And the Stoics were obsessed with creating space between stimulus and response, because that space is where your freedom lies. Epictetus taught his students to practice the discipline of assent, which means you never automatically accept the first interpretation your mind generates about a situation. You pause, you examine that interpretation, you consider alternative interpretations, and then you consciously choose which one to accept and how to respond. And this simple practice transforms your relationship with toxic people, because you're no longer dancing to their tune. Here's what this looks like tactically. Toxic person says something designed to hurt you or provoke you. Your automatic reaction might be to defend yourself or attack back or feel devastated. But instead of following that automatic reaction, you pause for 3 full seconds, you take a deep breath, you notice the emotion without acting on it, and then you choose a response that serves your interests, which might be calmly restating your boundary, or asking a clarifying question that exposes their manipulation, or simply saying that's an interesting perspective, and then changing the subject, or just not responding at all, because silence is often the most powerful response to toxic behavior. Marcus Aurelius practiced this constantly. He would be in situations where the socially expected response was to react with anger or offense, but he would pause and ask himself, does reacting serve any purpose here? Does it make the situation better? Does it align with my values? And usually the answer was no, so he would respond with calm rationality instead of emotional reactivity. And that response disarmed people, because they couldn't hook him with the tactics that worked on everyone else. The Stoics also understood something that modern psychology has confirmed, which is that toxic people are often operating from a place of wanting to feel powerful. And they feel powerful when they can control your emotional state. So if they can make you angry, they feel powerful. If they can make you defensive, they feel powerful. If they can make you doubt yourself, they feel powerful. But if you remain completely calm and unaffected, they feel powerless, and they usually escalate or give up. And either way, you've won, because you've maintained your center. Seneca writes that the greatest revenge is to not be like your enemy. And what he means is that when someone treats you with toxicity and you respond with calm dignity, you've demonstrated that you're operating on a completely different level than they are. And that's far more powerful than matching their toxicity or trying to hurt them back. The practical technique is to develop what's called the inner observer, which is the part of you that can watch your own thoughts and emotions without being identified with them. So even when you feel angry or hurt, there's a part of you that's watching that feeling and recognizing it as temporary mental weather that will pass. And from that observer position, you can choose your response strategically instead of being hijacked by automatic reactions. The fifth and final Stoic principle is recognizing when withdrawal is the wise choice and having the courage to remove toxic people from your life completely without guilt. And this is where a lot of people get stuck, because they've been taught that cutting people off is wrong or mean, or that you should always try to work things out. But the Stoics understood that some people are so committed to their dysfunction that continuing to engage with them is like voluntarily drinking poison and expecting to stay healthy. Marcus Aurelius writes that if something is not good for the beehive, it's not good for the bee. And what he means is that if a relationship is toxic to your well-being, your growth, your peace of mind, then maintaining that relationship is actually a betrayal of yourself and your potential. And the loving thing to do is to let it go. The Stoics practiced what they called appropriate action based on natural roles and duties. So yes, you have duties to family and colleagues and friends, but those duties don't include tolerating abuse or sacrificing your mental health. And when someone repeatedly violates your boundaries and shows no capacity or willingness to change, the appropriate action is to reduce or eliminate contact regardless of the social or familial connection. Here's how you know it's time to withdraw. If you've clearly communicated your boundaries multiple times and the person continues to violate them, if interactions with this person consistently leave you feeling drained, anxious, angry, or bad about yourself, if the person shows a pattern of manipulation, gaslighting, narcissistic behavior, or emotional abuse, if they take no responsibility for their actions and always blame you or others, if they're unwilling to have honest conversations or respect your perspective, then this person has demonstrated through their behavior that they're not capable of a healthy relationship with you. And continuing to engage is choosing dysfunction over your own well-being. The Stoic approach is to make this decision rationally rather than emotionally. You're not cutting them off in anger or as punishment. You're simply recognizing reality and adjusting your behavior accordingly. The same way you would stop touching a hot stove once you realize it burns you. You're not angry at the stove, you're just protecting yourself from harm. Seneca advises that we should periodically audit our relationships and remove anything that's not contributing to our growth and well-being. And he compares it to pruning a garden where you cut away the dead or diseased branches so the healthy parts can flourish. And that's what you're doing when you remove toxic people. You're creating space in your life for healthy relationships to grow. The practical implementation is to start with reducing contact. You don't have to make a dramatic announcement or have a big confrontation. You simply become less available. You respond less frequently to messages. You decline invitations. You create distance. And often the toxic person will either get the message and fade out naturally, or they'll escalate and reveal even more clearly why you need to maintain the distance. And if you need to completely end a relationship, you do it clearly and firmly, but without cruelty. Something like, I've realized this relationship isn't healthy for me, and I need to step back. I wish you well, but I won't be in contact going forward. And then you follow through regardless of their response. Whether they try to guilt you or promise to change or turn other people against you, you maintain your decision because you've made it based on a clear, rational assessment of the pattern, not on temporary emotions. Marcus Aurelius had to make the incredibly difficult decision to distance himself from people he cared about who were undermining his ability to lead effectively. And he did it with sadness, but without hesitation, because he understood that his duty to himself and to his responsibilities was more important than maintaining relationships that were destructive. And that's the ultimate Stoic wisdom about toxic people. You can care about someone from a distance. You can wish them well. You can even love them in a general humanitarian way, but you don't have to maintain contact with them if that contact is damaging to you. So let's bring all 5 Stoic principles together into a complete framework for dealing with toxic people. First, understand that toxic people are operating from their own wounds and conditioning, so you can observe their behavior with detachment instead of taking it personally. Second, establish unshakable boundaries and enforce them through your actions, not your explanations. Third, practice non-attachment to their opinions and emotional states by building your worth on internal factors you control. Fourth, master the art of responding instead of reacting by creating space between stimulus and response. And fifth, recognize when withdrawal is the wise choice and have the courage to remove people who consistently violate your boundaries and damage your well-being. These 5 principles create a complete system where toxic people lose their power over you, not because you've become cold or heartless, but because you've developed the wisdom to protect your energy and the strength to enforce your boundaries without guilt. Now here's the critical truth that will determine whether this information actually transforms your life or just becomes more content you consume and forget. Everything I've shared with you is intellectually sound and philosophically proven over 2,000 years. But intellectual understanding doesn't change behavior, because your patterns with toxic people are driven by subconscious programming that was installed in childhood. And until you address that programming at the subconscious level, where it actually lives, you're going to keep attracting toxic people, keep tolerating bad behavior, keep struggling with boundaries, keep feeling guilty for protecting yourself. This is exactly why the subconscious millionaire system that I've linked in the description is so essential, because that system gives you the specific tools for accessing and reprogramming the subconscious patterns around people-pleasing, fear of confrontation, need for validation, guilt about boundaries, all the stuff that makes you vulnerable to toxic people in the first place. And when you combine these Stoic principles with that deep subconscious reprogramming, you create a permanent transformation where you naturally repel toxic people and attract healthy relationships without having to consciously manage it. The investment you make in that system will pay dividends for the rest of your life in the form of better relationships, protected energy, maintained boundaries, and peace of mind. So click that link right now while you're thinking about it and commit to doing the deep work that creates lasting change. And then subscribe to this channel if you want more ancient wisdom combined with modern psychology to help you build the mental strength and relationship skills that most people never develop. Because you deserve to be surrounded by people who respect you, support you, and add value to your life instead of draining it.